Okay, well, welcome everyone. Bill, were you finished? When I came in, you were saying something. Were you finished with that?
Yes, I'll put the link I mentioned in the chat. It's a link to an article on Seattle's BEPS, on the Building Emissions Performance Standard, in,
Okay.
in a national magazine. So I think
Oh, which magazine?
Grist.
Oh, a local national magazine.
Oh, I don't know. Is it local?
Yeah, they're
Oh,
downtown.
okay. I didn't realize that.
It did get some national press, though.
Well, we can talk about that then. Okay, so again, welcome everyone. And Chris, we're very glad you're here. I think you're the first, unless anyone has some pressing announcements. I think you're the first item on our agenda. So again, welcome. Do we know what we're doing? Chris, do you have stuff to tell us, or do you want us?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I was invited, met up at with one of your members, Cindy, I think it was, at the Climate Science on Tap event in Ballard at a brew pub where they talk about climate. So that was and I showed up with my WPSR leafletting, tabling stuff, pulled behind my bike trailer on a cold and rainy night. So that got some extra credit, and so got invited to share. I mentioned some of us are already members. I know Mark Vossler, I think over on the east side, Kirkland area. He's been a member of the group over there. I'm part of Citizens Climate Lobby here in Finney, live in Greenwood area. So Noah, you may know Anne. She's pretty active with that. She's been leading that for many years. So, but I'm a family doc in Seattle. Went to UW for med school, Swedish for residency, was up in Bellingham for a number of years, was active with the climate efforts up there, and then moved back down here about 13 years ago to join Group Health, now Kaiser, work at their Northgate clinic as a full-time family doc, and had been a member with our student chapter of Physicians for Social Responsibility back in the 80s in medical school. And then when I moved back here, was able to get involved again when I heard that they were tackling climate as their second big priority. I said, climate, as far as I'm concerned, climate change is the nuclear war that's already happening. The PSR having been started to try to prevent nuclear war. I said, well, this is the one that's already warming up the Earth that much. I think the 3 atomic bombs per second, or an atomic bomb every 3 seconds, or something crazy like that is the equivalent. So, and then we know that the health impacts of climate change are one of the most persuasive things for a lot of people. So that I think of the suffering people, kids in inner city, asthma, flooding victims, all these obvious events that are becoming so common and devastating that it's hard for anybody to ignore them anymore, even if they want to pretend it's not related to climate. So on the positive side, we know that it's one of the things that we can have the most impact on health of any thing in the world. So we at Physicians for Social Responsibility are not just physicians. We're open to anyone who's interested in helping the climate effort. Our lens being the health voice on climate. So we have many members, some who have nothing to do with health, professionals, but most of us are health professionals, doctors or nurses or different people, and trying to be the health voice in climate. So let's see, I pulled up some of our legislative things and I can share my screen. Let's see here. We've been pretty active in most things around in the Washington state, both shifting off of oil. Here, let me pull this back up. Share screen. There we go. Let's see. Got the wrong screen there. All this sharing screen is a tricky thing. There we are. Are you seeing any of that about our electrifying buildings, etc.? Okay, so these were our policy priorities about climate resiliency in general, including utility shutoffs, electrifying the building sector, which we just talked about with BEPS. We were pretty active in the state building codes revision to make new buildings statewide be non-gas. Different growth management acts around the state, which is not so exciting, but is a huge piece of how to make this shift happen. Clean transportation, electric vehicles and all that. I've been pushing pretty hard on that. The electric school buses, transit-oriented development. So pretty much all the different places we can be part of it. The LNG export terminals, the gas export terminals up in Whatcom and Grays Harbor. So we try to show up, and when we show up with our white jackets on and can tell our stories, as most of us are doctors, and you say, my patient is getting affected by this, that brings a perspective that is pretty unique and kind of cuts through a lot of the lobbyist kind of stuff, so that we're speaking up for the health of our patients. So that's kind of how we do it, and make a strong effort to have good information, and not just telling patient stories, but real data. So we've got a full-time task force. It's our climate and health task force is what we call it. James Michella is our new guy. He's a full-time staff member just focusing on climate and health. So this is our website, wpsr.org, where people can just sign up to get our action alerts. And again, you don't have to be a health professional. If you just sign up, then you'll get, our hit the button, send the message, make the call when things come up. We put out a Washington Climate and Health Washington 2022 report, which was, the whole thing was probably 100 pages, but there's a nice 1 or 2 page summary. And then the latest big international one updated that as well. So we do a lot of our effort, towards government officials to get them to make the right decisions. But we're also out on the streets. So the last few voter initiatives that we had, the carbon tax and several different ones that have come up in the last few years, a lot of us have put a lot of time and energy personally getting signatures to try to get those on the ballot. And let's see, fossil fuels, we're trying to push for getting off of fossil fuels, of course. So I'll stop telling you all this general stuff. So in terms of collaboration, that was the kind of focus that I saw on the agenda. So I know you guys, my understanding is you guys focus also on local governments to try to get them to step up and strengthen their plans and activism and speed things up. We do that too. We have been mostly focused at the state level, mostly on the legislature and the state, like the state building council and state level things. But we're certainly very supportive of like local things, like again, the coal and oil export terminals were very local things. It also had state impacts and national impacts. But I think we're having a lot of interest, and we're kind of our one staff person, and most of us are just volunteers. Some of us still working full time, and a lot of us retired. So we're kind of based on how much energy and time people have, So if you say we should do this, everyone says, okay, who's going to do that? Like a lot of groups. But having one paid full-time staff person to kind of coordinate it and sort of push us along to, get us to sign up, and oftentimes at hearings, it's like, here's a couple speaking points that, Climate Solutions or one of the other groups says, here's some health talking points. Great. And I don't have to do all the research to figure out the data and the talking points. And now, as you're aware, all these hearings are now online, so you don't have to go all the way to Olympia anymore for them. So that's been a huge help. The GTN Express, I'm sure you're aware of that pipeline expansion. So we put a big push on trying to stop that. And now we're going to be on part of challenging that, just as we were on challenging the LNG export terminal in Tacoma, and also stopped the methane plant down in Kalama. We were part of that lawsuit. All of these things, the oil trains, the coal trains, the frack gas, all of those, we've been pretty big. Here's the methanol project that we helped shut down. So not just us, but in conjunction with a lot of people. So I think, at the simplest level, share, hey, here's what we're doing. What are you doing? And then, you got your action alerts, we can forward them to our people, vice versa. We can let us know, let you know about our action alerts. If we're, focusing on an area, we can get the word out to you. So that's the easiest part. And then, it can certainly be much more than that in terms of actual coordination about planning events and legislative things, testimony, traveling to places, organizing. We do educational events, speaking events, stuff like that, and rallies and marches. So it could be lots of those things. Let's see what else we have in our. Let me stop there and see if anyone had any questions based on what I said so far. While I page ahead here, here's our transportation feature. On the right-hand side, there were 7 of us who bicycled from Seattle to Olympia a year ago, the end of January, on a sub-freezing day. That's me just to the governor's right hand there on the Capitol steps there. It was a cold day, but we were there to deliver a letter saying we need faster and stronger climate action. That was motivated by the docs who did that at the Scotland meeting. And the doc who's just on the other side of the governor there, Anne-Marie Dooley from Ireland. She a kidney specialist. She says they did it in Scotland. We should do it here. And so he said, okay, we'll get our letter signed by all these health groups saying faster, stronger climate action, and we'll deliver it to those guys in Olympia during legislative sessions. And our legislators said, that's great. Bring it on down. Only problem is we're not there. We're all at home. It's COVID. We're all legislating from home online. And we said, oh, who is there? Well, the governor. The governor's there. And they said, well, we're not meeting with anybody. Got this COVID pandemic. I said, well, for that, the governor will meet with you. So we biked all the way from Seattle down to Olympia, and that was a good day. And we got a little bit of some press, not a lot. It's hard to get press, but unless you have thousands of people. But at least we kind of, and that I think every time you do that, or like showing up at the brew pub the other night, you make one more thing and that leads to the next thing. And this meeting was based on a previous meeting that Anne-Marie had with one of Inslee's staff persons. So it's that's what I find. It's, you're in a meeting with 50 people, and one person, you make a key connection that leads to the next thing and the next thing. So we're big on electrifying trains, clean vehicles, all that. So and we do talks for docs, and we're trying to get hospitals and clinics to produce less fossil emissions because the health sector is a huge emitter of carbon and greenhouse gases. So there's easy ways to shift that over. And so we're trying to get that going more among our health people. We do advocacy training. People can just be on our newsletter, our email list, or do more if they want to do more. So that's what time is it getting to be? Anyway, that's a good basics of it. I think with you guys doing your part, I'd be happy to be kind of a liaison. I told our people that I'd be happy to do that and just kind of send it back and forth. I see a bunch of hands up. Okay, I just noticed them. All right, let's see. How about Elizabeth first?
Thanks, Chris. So I'm delighted to see what a wide range of projects you guys have taken on. That's very impressive. I just have a very quick logistical question. Who pays the salary for your one paid guy? Like, do you have dues or something?
So we all do a ton of fundraising every year. We actually have we have an executive director, Max, and then we have a full-time paid staff person on each of our focus areas: climate, nuclear weapons, and income inequality. So it's just all our fundraiser. We go after grants. We've got plowshare grants for the nuclear part. I can't remember where it's just our people kick in money as essentially due. We don't call it dues. We're still actually grappling with what defines a member. Do you have to donate money every year? But we have a big, we're always raising money. So
Got it. Thank you.
how about Iris?
Yeah, thank you. I'm so excited, to have you here and to think about more intensive collaboration for two reasons. One, because climate change is not something that a lot of people sort of get excited about, especially people of the east part of the state, blah, blah, blah. But everybody gets excited about people's health. And so, really, really making that connection is absolutely critical for our work to grow in the right way. And I'm part of another work group working on trying to get a green amendment into the state constitution. And, people around the country are working on that. And I'm not sure who it is in that little work group, but somebody's reached out to WSPR. And that's also a green amendment into the Constitution is a way heavy lift in terms of what has to happen in Olympia. But again, people's health, hearing from doctors and nurses about, all of those, critical variables, I think is just a wonderful collaboration. So
Yeah.
very
Great, super. Yep, happy to be part of that. Okay, Sandy.
Yeah, hi. Oh, Chris, I'm so excited. I didn't know that other healthcare people could join. I'm an MSW. I was a discharge planner for many years. So I'm going to sign up. Anyway,
Great.
and thank you for everything you're doing. And I had two questions. One, everybody here in this group knows I work in urban tree protection really exclusively. And I know that urban heat islands, Seattle's #5 in the country for urban heat islands, and they're strongly correlated with a number of really awful health outcomes from asthma to strokes and heat illness and fatalities from heat, I understand, are the top killer from climate impacts. So I guess my question was, I didn't see in your summary, are you taking on urban heat islands and the growth of urban heat islands, which are growing not just in Seattle, but in many cities? Those are very hard to undo. So that was my one question. And then my other unrelated question was had to do with medical waste. My daughter worked in developing countries on, they have absorbed our single-use plastic for sterility procedures, protocols, and they do not have the facilities to dispose of those in an environmentally sustainable way. So I wondered if you guys were working on that at all. So trees, medical waste are my questions.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't recall off the top of my head if we've had a specific focus on trees. It's certainly something very important to me, and specifically with those last few heat waves and the people dying in Tacoma and Seattle and all over the area. And we know the lower income places have less trees and more heat, and there's a direct, obvious direct connection. So we're certainly supportive of groups that are doing that, but that's a good question. I can't remember. It's kind of largely driven by who stands up and says, okay, I want to go, and it's like I said, volunteer driven. So I'll have to check back and I can let you know. James is our guy, and we just finished our work plan and our work priorities for this coming year. And sometimes they'll say, well, we've already got much more than we can do, but be free to be our liaison and go and network, and happy to help. And very often for things that we're not actively pushing ourselves, we'll join sign-on letters or sign on lobbying things that because someone else has done the groundwork, and we say, sure, yeah, we support that. That fits very well in our whole frame. So definitely supportive of that. I just don't recall exactly. I know I gave a talk a while back on and the heat waves, and a big push on at least cooling centers, sort of the last minute emergency, help people cool off once the heat wave's already here. And at least connected with one of the new county council people before this most recent election over on the east side, and she had some specific interest on that. So at least her staff person. So I think they're starting. They say, hey, we're going to get a grant in another year or two, then we'll be able to do something about cooling centers, which seems to me incredibly slow, but better than nothing, I guess. So that was the cooling centers, and the other topic was, oh yeah, medical waste. So the group that really heads that up around the world is Healthcare Without Harm. I don't know if you heard about them or part of their efforts. They are really pushing it really well. So we hosted a meeting at Virginia Mason a couple of years ago, and they were very prominently involved in that. And that's what created our state. We have a state network of healthcare climate, groups that we formed from that meeting and preparing for it, and they're part of it along with Children's and Virginia Mason and Swedish and Kaiser. And it kind of formed, and and then there's been this national statement on getting healthcare groups more involved in climate action. And I haven't seen it as what's actually happening, but I know. So we support the efforts of Healthcare Without Harm because they're already kind of doing it. So if we see someone else already doing the job well, we kind of say yay, support them, rather than trying to reinvent the wheel ourselves. But that's the real go-to group, and they give a great example of the combination of these two things. This anesthesia doc going to work every day, and he drives his Prius or his electric vehicle because he's so climate minded. And then they come in and say, the anesthesia gases you're using compared to this other one that is just as cheap, and is a tiny fraction of the greenhouse gas emission equivalent. You are basically driving a nasty diesel semi truck to work every day, equivalent
Exactly.
to the anesthesia gas you're using. And he's like horrified, no, and like immediately switches over to this other anesthesia gas that works just as well. It's just as inexpensive, and it has a tiny fraction of the carbon emissions. So that's that kind of, just because they were just used to using it. That's what I trained with years ago. And so it's those system changes that make the big changes. I think, they don't even look at how do all of our workers and all of our visitors get to the place. There's very, very little effort to, encourage people to do anything but drive your own vehicle. So that's a huge untapped potential, I think. They're required to do a certain amount of the trip reduction. If you have so many workers, the government requires you to do something, but it's a real token effort. So that's one of my focuses, helping to get people out of their cars, carpooling, bike, bus, any of those things. So, but good questions. Okay, I see David with his hand up, and then Robin. Go ahead, David.
So Chris, it's great to have you here. Just a disclaimer to everyone, Chris is my doctor, so I'm a little bit biased here, but always been a big fan. So thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to agree with the point you made and that Iris reinforced just how health, I think, can be a common middle ground on these very divisive issues that I think all of us hopefully can agree that our health is important. And so anyway, just to reinforce that point, my question is, how much work is being done to get your institutions, Kaiser, Providence, Swedish, all those huge healthcare systems, to actually join with you, weigh in on these issues at the city and state and national levels? I mean, you guys have some impact. I can only imagine those institutions, if they got up and said similar things.
Yeah, great question. So that's part of our work plan for that part of our big overall work plan is to really invigorate and energize our network that we've already really started to build out, similar to our nuclear weapons network. So to really say, okay, let's show up, and it always helps to have, okay, here's the specific topic we need your help on. There's a vote coming up, or a good bill or a bad bill, and to focus on something like that. So there's plenty of them. And so that'll be, we just approved our new work plan. So I think that's going to be a big part to really say, okay, everybody, the State Medical Association, the hospitals, all these big groups, to say, all right, we need to be a part of the solution. Yep. Thanks. Robin.
Yes, I was just going to say Anne Marie is a total force of nature.
She sure is.
I've worked with her on a few things. She's amazing.
She is.
So you outlined a whole bunch of things. Do you have like one or two or three things that are like your focus for the next year?
I would say the building electrification is a biggie. that, and it's just come up lately, these it wasn't even I'm not even sure it showed up in the work plan because it's still just kind of surfacing, but these multiple voter initiatives to gut our Climate Commitment Act, I think that's gonna, that could be turned into a big thing, because if any of those, I don't, I think it's only one maybe, or maybe a series of them, but that could be a
Five.
huge, if five of them,
Six.
okay. So if one or more of those succeeds, that's a huge step back. And so I'm sure a lot of us are going to be spending a lot of time and energy working on how to stop those. Um, we so those are some of the biggies. Let's see, off the top of my head, I also interact with the faith groups, so trying to get the faith community more on board. um and so for me, it's clean transportation and then electrification are our two biggies. And then really, actually, now that we've got all this money pouring in from the Climate Commitment Act and the market thing, over $1 billion. Okay, make sure that's spent well, and keeping a focus on how that's being allocated and spent and getting the results. I think that's a big piece.
Yeah, so one thing I've thought about a little bit, I was working on, there was a Seattle Clean Schools resolution that went through a couple of years ago. And one thing, well, it's very clear with the pandemic that like ventilation systems in public spaces are really, really important. And that we haven't really paid a lot of attention to that. And we could
Mhm.
improve our health a lot if we, didn't had better ventilation systems, basically. And so it seems like there's a big intersection between uh, modernizing and electrifying buildings and also giving them better ventilation. And I guess the other thing I'd say is I noticed in the draft budget, the governor's draft budget, there's $40 million to improve schools' ventilation. 20 million of that is from CCA, and 20 million, I think, comes from some other place. I don't know where. But that's a big thing.
Mhm.
Anyway,
Yeah,
just put
sure.
that out there.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's linked to that, like, electrifying the school buses, so they're not belching diesel smoke at our kids. And there's so many billions of dollars, in the latest, federal thing. And I thought, that's like, we need like 100 times that,
Yeah, I mean,
when I
you
did the
say
math
40
of how many
million for
schools and,
schools. Yeah,
yeah.
it seems like a
But at
lot, but
least,
per school.
yeah, exactly. So anyway, we're starting to do that now, electric school buses. So, but much more to come. Anyone? I can't see any other hands right now. So, any last takers? Otherwise, I'll step back and enjoy the rest of your meeting.
Can you please stop sharing your screen, Chris?
Yep. Thank you. I'm still learning on this. Let's see. Stop share. There we go. There we go. Thank you.
So do we need to do anything other than just say we'll keep in touch and, keep you apprised of what we're doing and look for ways to coordinate?
Yeah, I guess if there's specific people that you want to let me know, or you can just go to our website and sign up if you want to just get our stuff, or if you want to let me know specific thing, because will send, if you want to get our, emails, it's, which area is it, climate, I would presume it'd be climate, but you can email me or text me, or you can just sign up to the website for those. And then if you want me to share things, or whatever you want to share with me, then we should probably talk more, to kind of iron that out. So I'd be happy to chat with somebody else, afterwards.
Okay. Thank you
Great.
very much.
Well, thank you.
Thanks so much for being here, Chris.
Yep,
Thank
you
you
bet.
so much. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks again.
All right. do we want to, should we move on, or do we feel like we're ready to move on?
Well, I guess I'll just say that, you know, he identified himself as willing to be liaison. And so it just feels so wonderful, you know, to have a person and a face, and having met him, so that we can think about, you know, how we might want to collaborate. And, you know, as soon as this meeting is over, I'm going to look at the Green Amendment spreadsheet to see who was responsible for getting in touch with WSPR and make sure that that happened, or, you know, it just feels really good to have a known quantity as a contact there. And yeah.
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I too enjoyed that. I got to thinking, do we have some way of recognizing, I don't know what to call them, partner organizations or collaboration? Anyway, on our website or wherever, if we kind of kept a list of organizations that we work with, I think it would be, one, impressive, and two, helpful when we want to reach out to organizations. We have this built-in list of folks to work with. And this is an example of an organization that I think we would like to partner with. Both ways, you know, that they tell us what they're doing and we ask them. So do we have any procedure for that?
You tell Robin that you wanted to update the website.
I don't know whether we need to formalize it, but some way of saying, yeah, we want to have them as a partner, listed as a partner, but we would need to go through some kind of discussion. Couldn't just be anybody.
I mean, I haven't looked at our, to be honest, at our website in a while. For all I know, there is a list of partner organizations, and whether they're on it or not, I don't know, but sounds like they'd be willing. I don't know if there is such a thing, and we can certainly find out.
I think for us, the question is always, are we partners as PCA Seattle, or are we partners as the entire PCA coalition? And those are different things. So we could definitely put down on our PCA Seattle webpage, which, to be honest, I'm not sure it gets a lot of visibility. But it might be more meaningful for the coalition to have that relationship. And therefore, I guess, one possibility would be for the coalition to host someone from the organization on their Saturday morning meeting one time.
So, Robin, can you repeat that last thing you said about Saturday morning meeting? I didn't quite understand what
The PCA coalition has meetings on Saturday mornings, like once a month or something.
Right.
I'm a little hazy on it because I'm not usually able to go. But it seems like if you could do a forum, if you could use that forum, you would be getting people in all the different PCA subgroups. And then that group can basically decide how to go further. Like, for example, if we wanted to work together on King County's climate initiative, we couldn't do that as PCA Seattle, but certainly PCA Coalition could.
Gotcha.
Does someone want to take this up with the suggest this to the coalition?
I will. There's not a meeting happening now until mid-January, so I'm not sure when it would happen, but yeah, I'll suggest it.
I'll just mention for the record that we're Seattle Cruise Control has a relationship both with Anne Marie Dooley and with James Moschella, and you know, they sign on to our letters when we ask them and stuff like that. We've had, and Anne Marie has shown up to a bunch of our protests. Hi, Sienna. Happy you're here.
Hey, sorry I'm late. I just got home from work.
Oh, welcome. Thanks for coming. No problem. We're actually recording this meeting, so if you want to see the original part, you'll have an opportunity.
Oh, great. Okay. Thanks for letting me know.
All right, so it sounds like one of the next things is Cindy will bring this up with the coalition and in due time.
Mhm.
And I see Chris is putting various things into the chat. All right. So next is the coalition report from Cindy and/or Iris.
No, I'm unmuted. So Iris, if you want to, I can,
So I haven't been at the last few coalition meetings. And I was, combining that with the education meetings, which you and I were both at, but please go ahead.
well, there wasn't a coalition meeting this last month, so I don't have a lot to say about that. But I can, I'm gonna go ahead, I'll try not to keep it on for long, but I'm gonna go ahead and share this. There's always that thing of how do you do this again when you're don't do it all the time. Share. Okay, share, there we go. Okay, I just wanted to show you this because it'll just cut through a lot. There's been a lot of discussion lately about education, and there was a big discussion. It was a very somewhat bureaucratic discussion about how to organize these different committees and what they should be. And Iris may have she was at that meeting too, we both were, but so she may have a different perspective, but I feel like we've basically ended up with what we had before, with one exception. So we still have a public education and outreach committee. On this chart, the public schools are put under it, but really there's this one person, Irene, who's been extremely active herself on her own, and what she'll do kind of in conjunction with anybody else who's interested at PCA, I don't know. I assume if other people, it's sort of like what Chris was saying, if somebody else steps up and says, that's my passion, who do I contact? They could contact Irene. And actually what came out of that meeting that made sense to me is that this gives, I'll show you the whole thing in a second, but it gives people, when somebody joins and says, what can I do? What needs do you have? If I wanted to volunteer, like what? And we often have trouble specifically answering that because it has to do often with whatever's going on specifically at the time. So in some ways, this will help with that. The general public education committee is still the same thing. When I said I didn't want to facilitate or lead it anymore, bless her heart, Marilyn stepped up. It's still the same people though. There's still like 4 people and 5 when Robin can come, which so otherwise it's the same 4 people. Or is it 5? It's maybe 5 people. And then the government officials advocacy committee is the same people who have been and have done well at working on moving the city and city ordinances and so on, and working with public officials. This is the part, I think, yeah, that can get most of it on there. These are the jobs that were listed out that people can, that if people come and they have an interest and they want to, these are things that we can use. You can look through, I can just run through its website, social media, existing educational resources, like what's out there that could go on the website or that people could use. Making videos, I don't know if whether that, I haven't heard more about whether that can really happen. A newsletter, somebody who would try to get stuff into news media. I actually don't know what repository contacts are. If you do, Iris, let me know. And then keeping up with, this PCA has the city actions workbook that people can use. That's, I think, less relevant to Seattle. I think it's cities that just have no idea, have never done any kind of a climate plan. It's a workbook to help them get started. So it was just listed out as various jobs that people can get involved in if they want to.
So Cindy, can you scroll? Yeah, okay. So I think that the sharing repository, can you scroll down a bit? Or scroll up, or yeah.
Chris.
Yeah. The sharing repository context, I think that refers,
It's there, it's in yellow.
I think that refers
Yellow.
to, I think that refers to the tools and literature and all that we have to be able to share them amongst the groups. And in terms of the videos, seems to me that that new person, Irene, does videos. She makes videos. Court was really excited about all these new people volunteering in the Bellevue chapter who have skills that others don't have. And so it seems as if videos might become a reality. And one other correction, if you scroll up to the top, my name is listed as the membership outreach contact, and Court put that there before speaking with me, and he and I had a couple of exchanges, and I told him that I'm not willing to take that on right now, and I suggested possibly that Linda Golly might be someone. So he said that he was going to contact her.
Okay, yeah, I'm not, I mean, all of these names here, I don't know how many of them are done deals now, because he and I had a conversation too, because he had put my name somewhere that I asked him to take it away. So, so yeah, so you know, as far as the committee, the committee that I'll go to the meeting, the general public education and outreach, I think exchanging ideas about just sort of more in-person outreach, since again, none of us are the people that have the interest or the skills in some of the things that are listed here, but I would love to use some of the resources if people develop them. So, okay, so that's what happened. As I say, I think we ended up kind of back where we started, except with this sort of list of possible jobs. Yeah, Robin.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Sienna put a note in the chat about her wife who has graphic design skills and is willing to help. And graphic design skills
Great.
are awesome. And I think it would just mean someone connecting her with the website team.
Yeah, connecting her with
Great. So let's see. That would be Alice.
so Cindy, your audio is breaking up pretty badly.
Irene.
I don't know if you can
Alice
hear.
Mang and Irene. So
No,
let me.
I'm muted. Oh, Sienna, sorry. Okay.
Okay, well, maybe I'll stop talking then.
So Cindy, I copied down Jess's.
I'm sorry
email.
about my computer.
Anyway, I have the information for Sienna's wife, and I'll pass it on to Court and the person who graphic designer, the webinar and the webinar person. So Sienna, is it the webinar?
Website contacts,
The website. Okay.
Alice and Irene.
Okay.
Okay, now I'm trying to figure out how to unshare. I will do it as soon as I figure it out, I promise.
There's
I know
something
it's
that's
doable.
stop sharing.
Big button in the middle on the top.
Yeah, I just have to find it. Okay. Okay, yeah, Sienna, thank you for that. That's wonderful. So it's already having an effect that people can plug themselves into jobs that they feel like they can do. So that's great. So that list, I hope that I'd like to see that list, you know, get better, get clearer about what it is and the contacts and so on. But I think it will, and I think that's the attempt. So that was the one piece that was great, as I said, that was new, is to have that list of what the jobs are and where people can plug in. So hopefully we can make that, once it's a little clearer and the right people are in the right places, we can make that more public. And there are places where there aren't people. So there's still opportunities for people if they would want to even be a contact person. So, okay. Anything else, Iris?
No, I don't have anything to add. Thank you, Cindy.
That's it.
All right, thank you very much. Let's see, the next is the port. I guess I'll just mention that, I can't remember whether I've mentioned this before, but looming over us is a possible future where the whole point in, well, one of the points in building the LNG facility in Tacoma, one of the uses that we have heard they plan to use it for is to have sort of floating LNG gas stations in Puget Sound, where when ships come here that run on LNG and need to be refueled, that's what they're going to be doing. For many reasons, this is not a good idea. I mean, in addition to the fact that they're going to be exporting the LNG across the ocean, and this is now Bob Howarth is a Earth and space scientist at Cornell and is the world's expert on methane. And he's basically said, this is, it's about 5 times worse than burning coal to, like, you know, frack and make LNG and then transport it to the facility and freeze it and put it on a ship. And the ship that takes it across the ocean is burning bunker fuel. And there's tons of methane that, you know, evaporate during all these, the entire process. So it might not be 5 times worse, but it's 2 to 3 times worse than just burning coal. So the whole LNG is a boondoggle, and I don't know how to stop it. But anyway, I just thought you should know that that's one of the terrible things that's kind of on the horizon for here. Robin, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'm writing it in the chat. 1/3 of all global shipping is just shipping fossil fuels. So
Yeah.
if we were to go off fossil fuels, we'd reduce our shipping by 1/3.
Yeah. Yeah. I've actually heard it 40% from Bill McKibben, but yeah, it is huge. And then on a smaller note, Seattle Cruise Control had a recent push to get people to take press a button that would send a letter to the port. And we got over 75 people to do that. And unfortunately, they didn't. We were hoping they would be summarized as written comments at the last commission meeting, and they weren't. They were totally ignored. So I wrote to the commission clerk, and she said, well, they didn't really come in. There were so many of them, and they weren't really in the context of a commission meeting. So they got sent to they were considered to be, commission email correspondence or something like that. So we're going to resend the basic letter and write all 75 names on it and make clear that this is intended as a written comment for the January 9th meeting. So we're gonna get it written into, announced into the record. Anyway, and I think that's kind of all I have for now. As you all know, there was 2 port commissioners were up for election this last election, but the incumbents won, which, to be honest, is good because their challengers, one of them didn't have a challenger, and the other one, the challenger was worse. So it's the same port commission for the next 2 years. Yeah, Sandy.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up, because I think, because Iris had made a comment on this, that, about the airport, the 110 acres that they want to develop of forest, right? So that was, yeah, and Iris, thank you so much we went to the port meeting, the last one they had, and we had a demonstration. But the point is, the land was set aside. It was part of what was eminent domain to make the airport. So that was originally taken by the government, and it was called mitigation to help the communities for cumulative airport impacts. Now they have plans to develop it. They've got an immediate plan to develop next year to clear 26 acres of forest and build 2 cargo warehouses. And then the other 80 some acres will all have plans. And so the group, which has been called Friends of North Sea Tech Park, it will have a new name now, because the park is somewhat misleading. It's not a park, it's forested land. They call it vacant land, but it's really critical for the public health of those communities around there for particulate pollution and all the aviation pollution. So anyway, that community is starting to get really organized against this plan. And I hope, and also Defenders of Highline Forest is what the name will be of that organization. So we're going to, I work mostly with urban trees in Seattle, but I want to support them because it's a less intensely populated area. They don't have quite as big of a group, and they really need our support to save this last bit of forest that they have. But I don't, the commissioners, of course, they act like nothing's happening the whole time, with these, and the plans proceed to build these, to clear the land and build the warehouses. So anyway, thank you for what you do. I didn't realize how awful it was to work with the port. I thought the city council was bad enough, but now, now I see it's like, oh, okay, it's the port too. Yeah, they're all in cahoots.
Yeah, there was some you were there, right? There was some very, very strong testimony at the last port meeting about the plan to cut down the trees.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's really crazy because the forest goes right up to yards and communities where there's daycare centers, churches, like all kinds of, a lot of schools. So a lot of vulnerable, like kids, these are primarily BIPOC neighborhoods. And this is like really wrong. They should not lose their trees, because they will have already they have an urban heat island, but it's going to be way worse. So thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Sandy. All right, so let's move along to city, county, and state stuff, courtesy of Robin.
Yeah, so maybe I'll start off with the city and county part, and then maybe Bill, if you want, you can help me with the state. So in the city, of course, the big news was the BEPS passing, which is really big. And that was great. I guess I would say part of why that was able to happen was because the city had set up a kind of space for there to be a committee on climate 2 years ago. And these two meetings were the only time that committee had met. But 2 years ago, we all as PCA Seattle were advocating with the city to make this committee, and we wanted it to meet much more often, but they didn't really have capacity for that, as it was explained to us. But the fact that they had written it into the resolution that they passed 2 years ago meant that they could simply convene this special council in November and get the buildings emission performance standard passed. And without that, it probably would have gone until after the new year and been considered by the new council, which my guess is, I mean, they're much less experienced really coming up to speed on things. And possibly, I think for none of them was climate their main thing when they were campaigning. So I think it's much better that it came up before the council before the new year rather than after. Elizabeth?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that they wrote something about select committee on climate into whatever, that they made it official 2 years ago.
It was great. We, on one level, we totally won. We asked for a select committee on climate and they made one. It just never had a chairperson and never had any meetings. So, I mean, I think the way it worked was Dan Strauss was going to be the chair and he was arguing for the committee. But when it came to it, his staff person had quit and the new committee didn't come with any staff time. And he was doing the land use committee at the same time, and he just did not have capacity for both. And no one else was willing to step forward and be the chair of that committee. So it never came into being.
So how did Deborah Juarez end up being the chair?
She was not the chair. Lisa Herbold was.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Lisa Herbold.
And Lisa basically, on her initiative and, at the urging of some climate folks who were talking to her and
Right.
basically advocating with her to do the building emissions performance standard. She started talking with Council President Juarez and with Justin Farrell over in OSC. And they together were able to pull it off, obviously with the help of the rest of the council.
So somebody knew that this committee had been formed, or enacted or whatever.
Yeah, well, it was formed by the council. Certainly Juarez knew, because that's part of the city council president's job, is figuring out what committees there are and who's on them.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Iris?
yeah, I just want to say, with regards to this topic, it would have been nice for us to have known that that was written in. I mean, since I don't follow things closely, I never would have known. But also, I want to give all of us a giant round of applause, because we worked on that for a couple of years. I know I wrote, at least 2 letters, and we all, we edited it, and, we asked them for a select committee on climate. That was one of our big efforts. And it's not like, that we're the only people that made that happen, but yay, I'll take that. That's just awesome. Yay for us.
Rich?
I think a good chunk of credit has to go to 350 Seattle, because they were canvassing in Juarez's district and were keeping in constant communication with her.
They were huge, yeah.
So that she could, go out with a legacy.
Yeah, so 350 Seattle pulled together a group of, literally hundreds of Seattle residents who were arguing for this bill. And there was also a group of kind of staffers from the major environmental organizations, like Climate Solutions and the Sierra Club, and obviously 350 Seattle has staffers. And these people, and Shift Zero, these people just coordinated with each other really well. They presented a pretty much almost a single front. I mean, the different organizations did have different opinions about what they should do, but pretty much they talked stuff out amongst themselves and kind of worked together to get this done. And it's, there've been weekly meetings for like a year, and a lot of the people working on it have been doing a lot more than the weekly meetings.
Yeah, it's a lesson that coalitions work.
Yeah.
Instead of one individual organization trying to carry the ball all the way, when you've got a coalition, it gets their attention.
Yeah. Dave?
Well, I certainly agree that coalition was key. And what my hope would be is that this coalition would remain and continue and become, in my sense, more proactive rather than just single focused when an issue comes up. And they would actually create some kind of agenda for the year, and not a long agenda, but 2, 3, 4, 5 items, and just really focus on the city on those items. So my hope is out of this success will come a desire to stay together and be more proactive.
I think that would be great. And that actually gets me to another thought that I had, which is, I guess what I'd say is all of those groups, except 350 Seattle, are actually state-based organizations. So they basically carved a little time out of their normal state operations to take this on that's strictly Seattle. And I think the reason why they did that was because they saw it as an example of legislation that's being enacted around the country, and that other cities would see Seattle's example and follow it. And I guess that gets me to my next point, is that we're PCA Seattle, we're part of this larger coalition. So there's other parts of our group that are in other cities, and they could be advocating for a similar policy in their cities. Particularly Bellevue, I think would be ripe for this. So I think if PCA Seattle, or PCA Bellevue, I should say, were to push on this, And now is the right time because obviously it's gotten a fair amount of press, you know, now it's like fresh in the news. But if they were to push on this, then that gives all the staffers who were in these other organizations, oh, like we do this and people notice and more stuff happens. I guess kind of what Chris was saying about how, you know, you go to one meeting and you get something to do and you do that, and then something comes from that and something else comes from that and so forth. Well, one of the things that could come out of BPS is our pushing for something similar in Bellevue. And I haven't talked to anyone else about it. It's just an idea I had a couple days ago, but it makes sense to me, so.
So Robin, I see that Laura is trying to ask a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Laura, I think you're muted.
Sorry, I don't know how to put the little hand up yet. So I've been using my physical hand. So I was just curious, given what we see year after year at the COP things and how people commit to things and then they go back and they do 1/10 of what they commit to or whatever. And so what kind of, you know, is this set up, the BPS thing in Seattle? Are the buildings really going to do this, or is there going to be some kind of, you know, watchdog thing where, you know, are we sure that all these, you know, we've had this law, but is this really going to happen? Are the buildings or the owners going to be able to appeal it and change or find loopholes and things like that? That's my one question. And my other question is, being new to the group, how do you know all this stuff, Robin? Do you work for the city, or, you know, I just don't know where your connection is to all this. So anyway,
No,
that's
I basically just keep an ear to the ground on a lot of things, and I've been attending a lot of these BEPS meetings with Dave, I will say.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think on the matter of, you know, how does this make a difference or will it make a difference? I think the answer to that is sometimes like Seattle has all these goals that they've passed and then they completely ignore those. And
Right.
but this is an actual law that people are supposed to obey. So that has its on its plus side. But I would say that there's this, and I didn't know any of this until I started out like a year or two ago on this whole effort, but they pass a big law like BEPS, and then there's this second phase that happens after the law is passed, which is called rulemaking. So a lot of times when the law is in process, people will ask things like, well, will it work like this or like that? And the answer will be, oh, well, we're going to figure that out in rulemaking. Like the legislation, you know, details like what the law is supposed to do, but then the agencies responsible like come up with specific rules that if the companies follow, they won't get hassled. I don't know. I'm sure somebody who knows more
So we
about
can
this
have in
say
good
more.
faith that this will actually happen, you know. I mean,
Well,
I believe it will help if they really do it. So I just didn't know if it's really gonna.
Yeah, I guess my point was that we need to, or somebody needs to keep following up with them on the rulemaking to make sure that that is as good as the law, because that's also a really important piece. So
Got it. Okay, thanks.
On that topic, I'm sorry, Dave, I'm pushing ahead of you. I mean, there is part of the law is penalties for non-compliance, but the point is, are those going to be enforced? And
yes,
your question about loopholes is very apt because there are way more loopholes than most of the environmental groups wanted. So we don't know how many, you know, how many loopholes people will get away with and how the enforcement will be, but
Right.
so I think
Yeah. No, I mean, we don't know, but I agree with Iris. It is it's a big step.
but it's more than just a goal. It's more than, oh, we have a climate action plan now, aren't we great? You know, it's
Yeah.
Go ahead,
so
Dave.
building owners can have the expectation that they would be forced to pay penalties if they don't make changes. They have some time before they have to do any of that.
Yeah, of course. Timeline. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Dave, you still got your hand up.
Yeah, just to add to what you were saying, because I think it's a really great question. The answer is yes, I think it's really going to happen because of these penalties. It's law, it's not just a plan. However, it has been said that one, there's just multiple paths to compliance. The property owner has really worked on the city to get a lot of flexibility built into this thing. And so there's a whole lot more flexibility than I think we would like. But nevertheless, they're supposed to get there. But the second concern is they have a real long time to get there. 2045 to 2050 is when it's actually going to really, really happen for these.
Oh, wow.
And so they're over time, they'll gradually get there, but it's not until 2050 that we're going to realize what we're trying to achieve. So
Wow.
a lot of
I mean,
flexibility and a lot of time.
a lot of this HVAC equipment, like you buy it and it runs for a long time. You know, like you buy a furnace, you know, whether it's for a small or a large building, it's going to be there for like 15 to 25 years. So they don't want people that the city does not want to require building owners who have perfectly good equipment to like throw their equipment out and get new equipment.
Yeah. Sure.
But at the same time, they want all of it to be finished at a certain time, and they want to have everyone's expectations set, right? I
Yeah.
mean, like if you, as a homeowner, if you knew that like after 2040, everything has to be electric, you wouldn't buy a gas furnace in 2035 because the lifetime of the gas furnace is 20 years, and after 5 years, you're going to have to junk it. It would be better for you just to get the electric right then.
Yeah.
So that's I'm maybe making the devil's argument here for why there's the long lead time. But the other part of that is that having gone through this long stakeholder process with the building owners, I don't think the building owners are going to sue. You know, they would have preferred that this not happen at all. But given that it happens, this could be better than what could result if they do a suit and it loses.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, that's great.
Go ahead, Rich.
Well, Robin, what's timeline on the Climate Commitment Act for, you know, because we're supposed to get down to zero.
I don't know. I'm not really an expert on the CCA.
Is that,
I think it's probably
dovetails
2050,
with,
but I don't know, to be honest.
because that's another thing hanging over the landlord's head, is that one.
True.
I think it is 2050. It's built into the original schedule. You know, the schedule goes back to 2008 when there was a state law passed to put us on a schedule down to zero in 2050. And the CCA is based on that schedule.
So maybe some of the landlords have to be doing something before the tail end of the timeline.
Well,
the
CCA,
whole idea is the cap goes down each year, and if you can't meet the cap.
yeah, the CCA doesn't affect the BEPS schedule. BEPS is a separate schedule.
But the CCA did, well, we should get into this more when you talk about state stuff. But the CCA, I think, has had other positive effects.
Yeah.
So
it's aimed primarily at the larger emitters now, not at individual homes and so on.
yeah. So other things happening in the city now. So we had an election in November, and we got most of a new city council. I think there's three council people who are from before. One of them only with 2 years experience. And the other two have 4 years of experience. And we have 5 incoming council people. They're going to have to figure out some stuff right at the beginning. And one of the first things that they figure out, I guess, is who's going to be the council president. And strong rumors I've heard is they've actually already figured that out, and it's Sarah Nelson. That Sarah Nelson is essentially also figuring out committees and committee assignments actually pretty much now. And that means that it would be a really good time for us to write another letter. I know we've done a ton of letters on the select committee, but it would be a really good time to write another letter about the importance of a select committee on climate and how climate has to play a prominent role in how they organize the city council committees, so that there's a forum to discuss climate issues in the city. So that's one thing. I guess I'd say I've been trying to think about like what's kind of on the docket for the city over the next year as relates to climate. And the things that it looks to me are these, and I came up with a list of 4 things. So feel free to add on, anyone else who has other ideas, but so the city has a projected budget gap for the next year that's a very large budget gap. I think it's like $250 million. And one of the places they're going to be looking to take money from is probably going to be the Green New Deal spending. So one of the things that we'll probably be needing to do, I suspect anyone who's currently, you know, attached to how the city spends its money is going to be arguing for why they should continue to spend the money that way. But we need to, we're going to need to come up with really good, strong, and vociferous arguments for why the climate spending should continue, and why the things that they're spending the money are important, and what difference they make to like the lives of people in Seattle. So I think that's one thing. There's 2 pieces of legislation that are both quite large that are kind of due this year, like the city has to pass them, I think, pretty much. And one of them is the comprehensive plan, which the city is required to pass before the end of the year. And the city's been working on the comprehensive plan, in particular the mayor's Office of Community Development and Planning has been working on it for, you know, I don't know, probably a year or so already, maybe longer. And they were supposed to have released it for, you know, a draft of it for public comment back in June, and it didn't happen. And then they were going to do it in August, and it didn't happen. And then they were going to do it in November, and it didn't happen. And then they were going to do it in December, and it didn't happen. So I'm guessing it might happen in January, but I don't know. But they're way, way late on it. And it's all going to have to get figured out by a city council that's relatively inexperienced. But that's something we should be paying attention to. Oh, I guess I lost one. So another thing that the city council needs to do early on is elect another city council member. Because Teresa Mosqueda, who's been on the city council for a long time and is very experienced, got a seat on the county council. So she's going to be presumably resigning as of the end of the year to take up her new job. And so that leaves a vacant seat. And the city council can elect amongst themselves, the 8 of them that are there, they can elect a 9th person. And then that seat would be open at the November election this coming year. So among all the other things we'll have on the ballot, we'll have a city council at large position. So that's another thing that we could be paying attention to. And the transportation levy. So the city's, just like it's been working on a comprehensive plan, it's been working on a transportation plan. The transportation plan draft was actually released on schedule in August. And it is supposed to point the way to a transportation levy proposal. And basically the city writes a transportation levy proposal, and then it ends up on the ballot. And then all of us get to vote on it. And the current levy is called Move Seattle, and it runs out, I think, this coming year. And so they need a new levy in order to continue funding transportation projects. and what projects they put on the levy, the choice of those projects is really important for how we're able to, or whether we're able to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from transportation. So the levy runs for, I think, like 6 years. And so, you know, this is, if we want to make our transportation greenhouse gas emission goals for 2030, this is the one opportunity we have to do it by spending money anyway. Elizabeth?
I'm sorry, did you say, I got a little spacey. Is there going to be a public comment period for a draft of the transportation plan? Any news about that?
There was one and it closed.
Right.
And they will be doing more outreach. So that's not the end of being able to say something about that.
Do you know anything about it? Was it terrible?
Actually, I think it was pretty good. I'm sad to say that I have not gone through it in thorough detail, but the articles in the Urbanist were pretty positive, which made me think good things. And they all said things like, okay, so the plan's good, but will the city really do this? And because, you know, again, this is a plan, and the important thing is how they decide to spend the money, which they're supposed to do based on the plan, but sometimes things get waylaid on the way. Keith?
So yeah, I'm kind of wondering about the development of the language of the levy and how that happens. I think unlike developing a plan, it's a more political process.
It
And
is.
it's probably going to be
Yep.
a small, kind of a small group trying to get support from council members for something they would put forward. So a little less kind of public arena opportunities, maybe for way
Yeah,
down.
I'm guessing there will be opportunities, but whether there'll be a lot of time for them, I don't know. I think the process is that the mayor probably drafts something and the city council responds and approves or amends. And that's what it takes to get it onto the ballot. So obviously the SDOT director is important to that, but so is the whoever it is that is going to be the transportation chairperson on the city council side. Elizabeth?
I have a question. I'm sorry, it goes back to BEPS.
Mhm.
Is it OSE that writes the rules? for
Yes.
it?
OSC will do rulemaking. And I don't know if you get my climate newsletter, but I had a link in there for, if you're interested, you can sign up for to be notified when they start the rulemaking. So I
Okay.
think they spend a few months figuring out how to do the rulemaking process, and then they start the process. Nothing happens immediately.
Oh, Sienna wants to know what newsletter. You should get on.
Oh, yeah,
it.
I have a Seattle climate newsletter that I put out. And if you're interested, I would definitely add you to it. I send out an email every couple weeks or whenever there's, you know, exciting news. Yeah, give me your email address if you're interested and I'll put you on.
And then my other question, I'm sorry, was, are you and Dave, is that coalition of groups that worked on BEPS that met every week? Are they still meeting, and are you and Dave part of it still?
I think it's it's not meeting now. It sounds like it's suspended for a while. I would encourage them to keep meeting, but we'll see.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm guessing, you know, as I said, they're all state organizations. Unless unless they have something particular to do, you know, their jobs call for them to do other stuff, so. But I think they were awesome, and if we could, as Dave said, get their attention more often, that would be really great.
Robin, I just want to make sure you see that two people, is it Laura and Chris 3 people.
Oh, awesome.
Add if one you
Awesome.
get on your list. So somehow we capture those emails.
Okay, great. I will save the chat and that's great.
Mhm.
Um,
Awesome.
yeah, so that's kind of what's ahead on the city level. And then at the county level, the big thing that I know of that's happening is the county council voted to ask, I guess, more or less Dow Constantine to draw up a plan for a climate initiative that would be on the ballot in November. And basically, I think what they're asking for is, what if we had a lot of money, amount unspecified, but on the order of $750 million or to $1 billion? What if we had a lot of money to spend on greenhouse gas mitigation and climate resilience and environmental justice? You know, what would we spend it on, and how could we raise that kind of money? And, you know, basically they have a very good King County strategic climate action plan, but they haven't done much with it, partly because they don't have funding for it. And so I think they're kind of saying, well, gee, let's if we funded this, what could we do? And so yeah, so I've been thinking that it would be a good idea to put together a meeting, if we possibly can, with the King County Climate Office to find out what's going on and if there's anything we can do to help. And I sent email to Court and he was amenable to this, but I have not done anything about that. So I would say I sent email with wearing a different hat. I have a hat that I wear sometimes that's Seattle King County Climate Advocates Hub. So that group decided to contact the climate office. And I think it would be great if we had, and I've been trying to work on this, but haven't made too much progress yet, get, as Dave was saying, people from different organizations to all meet together with the climate office and find out what's going on and see how it might affect us. So that's what I've been trying to put together, but so far it's mostly in my head because I haven't really had a lot of time to work on it. And then there's state things, and there's a lot of state things. Bill, do you want to lead off and talk about that for a bit, and then maybe I'll tag along, or
Yeah, I'll just really talk about 2 things which you really have to pay attention to now. As we mentioned earlier, actually in sort of chat before the meeting, the CCA, the Climate Commitment Act, is under attack. And I know at least one initiative, but I guess there's more than one initiative. But the one that I know about has enough signatures, so it's likely to go on the ballot. And the legislature has the capacity to review that initiative, pass its own version of the initiative, and those both could go on the ballot. So this will be an interesting session to see what the legislature does about the CCA. Sort of incidental to that, it's very likely that the legislature will consider and pass a bill requiring the oil companies to disclose all of their costs that lead to the gasoline prices we see at the pump, to try to make transparent what's actually happening with those gasoline prices, because they're blaming the CCA for those. Now, in terms of the statewide BEPS, there is a statewide BEPS, as you might know. That is, the State Building Code Council has passed a rule that requires buildings to meet high emission standards. I guess I said that the wrong way, low emission standards. Anyway, high standards for low emissions. And that will probably come under attack in the legislature also. So it looks like we'll be playing defense on those particular issues. There are some other things coming up in transportation, for example, which might be interesting, but they're much less likely to be highly contentious as these two are.
Yeah, so I'll add a little bit. There's the last year the Puget Sound Energy brought a bill forward for basically a decarbonization plan to phase out the gas side of their business. And it almost passed last year, but it's, I think, going to be back this year. And I think one of the things that got PSC to bring the bill forward was the CCA, because they had the feeling that they were basically going to be facing rising prices for no, if you know, even if all of their other costs stayed flat, they were going to have to be buying allowances, and that they, since they are also in the electricity business, they don't need to sell gas to people. They could just sell electricity and it would be better for their business. So anyway, so they brought this bill to the legislature last year for basically planning a phase out inside their service area for their gas business. And I think that's going to come back this year. And we'll see what the legislature does with it, but that could be a very big deal if it passes.
I think Alex Ramble's bill could come through too. He has a bill that didn't get out of committee this year.
Which one are you thinking of?
That's building decarbonization bill. 1329 it was, and I think it can be reintroduced.
Oh, the Navigator bill.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, yeah, so I guess that's the other thing is this is, the legislature works in bienniums, which means they take a two-year thing and they do it all together. So they have an election and then they have a long session in the legislature, and they figure out the budget and a lot of bills. And then the following year, which is the year we're in now, they have a short session and then they have another election. So we're in the short session this year. So it's just a 60-day session. It's not long like last year. And they don't have to come up with a complete budget, but they do make budget changes since last year. So they do, they basically amend the budget. One of the things that they're amending is the CCA CCA auctions have brought in a lot of revenue above projections. So they have to figure out what to do with that revenue. And there are a lot of proposals, as you might guess, for things to spend money on. The governor came out with his draft proposal, and you know, the legislature will be sorting it out soon. One of the things in the proposal, as I said earlier, was the improving ventilation and electrifying schools, and also heat pumps for Washington residents. I think particularly low-income residents.
And that'll all be in the budget, I think.
Yeah, those are budget items.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's money for school buses and lots of stuff.
Yeah, electric school buses, that's a big one coming up in the budget.
Yeah. So that all comes, and it's going to go fairly quickly. One thing I would suggest, I have to get a link for it, but there's a group that I volunteer with called 350 Civic Action. And we track the climate bills as they go through the legislature, and we send out twice a week, we send out alerts of what's going on in the legislature and what you can do to help. And each one of these is a fairly quick little thing that you can do. A lot of times it's just a matter of signing in pro or con on a bill to let the legislature know what you think about it. And sometimes it's like writing a note to your representative about how you're in favor of something. stuff like that. So if you're interested in that, that is, I think it's actually been fairly influential in getting climate stuff passed and getting some of the worst stuff not passed. I'll get a link. That's going to take me a second, but I'll get a link to the sign up page if anyone is interested.
So Robin, I sent an email to the whole People for Climate Action. Did y'all not get it with that information?
I got it. I'm amplifying.
Okay, great.
I've done a legislature guide. If anybody's interested, I'll put it in Google Docs.
So I was thinking, if you don't think it's overkill, we could send out another email right at the beginning of the session, maybe the first week of January, saying, hey, you could sign up for this. If we don't have an idea of another email we want to send in January, that's I guess what I would suggest.
So the session starts on the 8th. So I can send it the first week of the month. Sure.
I don't know if you want to send it before the January 3rd kind of orientation meeting.
Well, I mean, I just sent it a few days ago, but if
Yeah,
y'all,
I think we want to give it a little time, but yeah, sometime, I mean, I don't know. Right after the new year, I think would be good because people are like doing new things, right? They're adopting new resolutions and it seems like a good time.
so like on the 2nd, so they can get it before the 3rd.
Yeah, that sounds great.
And you know, what I had to do is I'm pretty sure what I did was forward Grace Hope's email to me. I didn't know how to do it a different way. But
Yeah, I might, I don't know. I don't know if there's a better thing to do or not, but I was gonna try and think a little bit about that before we get there.
you mean
Um,
all right, well, if you know a better way to do it and you can tell it to me, I will do it. But
yeah, I'm not sure that I do, but I thought I would think about it.
great, thank you.
Okay, is that the, are you guys done with the city, county, state stuff? That was a lot. Thank you.
That's the zeitgeist.
Well, thank you very much, Robin and Bill. All right, I see BEPS is on here as the next thing. We sort of already talked about it. Are we done? Okay, so moving on, the last thing was, or the next thing is outreach to new and incumbent city council members. But I don't know who's gonna run, do we have someone who's gonna talk about that? Discuss strategies for meeting with new old city council members. Oh, Cindy and others. And send discussion to Sienna, only Sienna's here. That's great.
I thought I wasn't going to be able to make it.
Problem. So Sienna, I'll just say, Chris Colbert Bowles from Washington Physicians for Social Responsibility, that's the only thing you missed. And he gave a very inspiring talk about all the work they do, a lot of which is of interest to us. So if you want to see the first 15 minutes, that's what's there.
So, oh, should I go ahead? Yeah, I don't have anything super special to say about this. What happened was we were talking about whether to have a meeting in December and what might we talk about, and I just threw in, well, gosh, there's going to be practically a brand new city council, and we're going to want to be in communication with them. So then my name got put next to the agenda item. But So, so I think, which is fine, but so I think, I mean, we've talked about some things that we would, I mean, Robin mentioned a number of things that we might want to take on with the city council. So I don't have any special thoughts other than we probably have some time next time or soon to think about what we want to make most important with city council, probably in conjunction with, as we've talked about, other groups, some of which are considerably larger than us. But we're gonna want to meet them, and we're gonna want to introduce ourselves. But I also suggested that they might need a minute to kind of, get into their offices and, get themselves organized a little bit. So, which may give us time to decide which things and with whom. So that was just the only thoughts that I had. As I say, I just thought it would be a topic and we should probably think about it. That's all. And then here I am. So.
Well, I'm wondering, in light of Robin's report on city stuff, besides the issue of having them maintain the select committee on climate, I imagine it hasn't been disbanded. So talking with them about that, but the things that you mentioned, Robin, like advocating holding on to the Green New Deal money and what's in the comp plan and electing another city council member and the transportation plan. If we can figure out what we want to advocate around those things, maybe those could be some talking points that we would want to use in conversation with city council. And so I wonder if, maybe a few of us want to meet at, not in this big meeting, but in a smaller meeting to pull together some specific talking points around that.
I think that's a great idea.
Would you be willing to be part of that small meeting, Robin?
Yep.
Okay, I would also. And Keith, awesome. Anybody else? Deanna, terrific. So do we want to pick a date right now? I say we should try, because what is it when the iron's hot?
I think they're gonna have more time now than once they get going. As they get going, they'll just get busier and busier. Did you get Dave's name? He had his hand up.
I'm sorry, who did?
Dave.
Dave, awesome. Thank you, Dave. Okay, so that's 5 of us. That's perfect. So Sienna, you work like full-time during the day?
Yeah, but I work from home usually. I had some meetings in the office today, but my schedule's usually pretty flexible.
Great. So, so do we want to look at the 3rd week in January?
I think we should try to do it sooner, because I really think after like March, it's gonna be much harder to get meetings with them.
Okay. All right.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know. It seems like the last time we elected people in 2019, right after the election, they were willing to talk, and a few months after that, they were just, I don't know, busy.
So what about a Tuesday morning, like January the 9th?
I'm away for a little bit, so I can do before the 5th or after the 12th.
Or the 5th. What about Thursday the 4th? I could do that afternoon.
I can do anytime that afternoon except 4. I have a meeting at 4 and then again at 6. But except for that, so I could do like 2 or 3.
2:30 to 4 or 2:30 to 3:30. Let's try and keep it to an hour.
Yeah, I agree.
So what about Thursday, the 4th, from 2:30 to 3:30? Does
Works
that,
for me. Does it work for everyone else?
Works for me.
It's not perfect for me because we have an out of town guest, but she's going to be here enough days that I think I could just block off that time. So
awesome.
works for me.
Thank you so much for that flexibility. And actually, yeah, I'm pretty sure that will work. I'm just thinking that my niece, who has COVID and therefore had to postpone her visit here, is going to be here that week. So it may be that I cannot make that, but for right now, I'm going to say that I can. And Robin, do you have the Pro Zoom account?
I do now. I just got it.
Yay.
So yes, I could send out a Zoom link.
Okay, great.
Um,
So it's to Dave, Iris, Keith, Sienna, and you on January the 4th at 2:30 to 3:30. And that's going to be a planning meeting for what we want to talk with our city council members about.
great. Okay. I'll send that out.
Thank you. So is there anything else? Cindy, thank you for sort of bringing this up, and because I think it's important. So yay for getting the ball rolling on this.
I just wanted to say, I'm sure that the, building and business lobbyists will be in their city council, meeting with the city council members right away. So we want to get in there too.
Right, with regard to BEPS, Elizabeth?
With regard to everything. With
Right.
regard to what directions the city's going and what they want the city council to do.
Yeah, in that vein, I would just note that in a meeting that several of us were at with Alex Peterson some weeks ago, where he surprised us by saying had firmly committed to vote in favor of BEPS. He said how nice it was to meet with constituents who wanted to talk with him and who weren't being paid to talk with him. So that was a nice, refreshing thing to hear. And maybe, yeah, I don't know if the incoming ones will feel the same way or not.
Makes politics sound like the opposite of therapy.
So I have a question. How do they how does Sarah Nelson get to be the president? How is that decided? Why isn't
Well, it's not decided yet, so they will vote on it officially at the beginning of the year when they seat the new council.
so do you,
But this is more like scuttlebutt is this is what's going to happen.
and is that because why her? Like, why not Tammy Morales or?
I think she is more ideologically aligned with the new council than Tammy Morales is. I think Tammy is the only left-leaning person left on the council at this point. And so it would be hard for her to get all the other ones to vote for her. And then of the other ones, she and Dan Strauss have the most experience. I don't know why. Anyway, Dan Strauss's name, no one has mentioned it like, oh yeah, he's going to do it. I have heard that he may be budget chair. So perhaps he and Sarah arm wrestled for it and he got budget.
So quick question. Is anyone at this meeting now in Sarah's district?
Sarah is, what do you call it?
At
She gets
large?
elected by the entire city.
Okay,
There's
so-
two special districts, which are the entire city. And she is one and Teresa Mosqueda is the other.
Okay, so that means that a bunch of us can meet with Sarah. That's-
Absolutely, we can.
We're her.
Yes. If
Okay.
she will give us a meeting.
Yeah.
All right, well, we could, I think this was a very full meeting. We can adjourn early if. Yeah, go ahead, Iris.
Just one other thing, Beth Brunton couldn't make tonight's meeting. So she's going to be at our January meeting. And that was in regards to answering some concerns we had about PCA Seattle signing on to the Seafair Climate Action campaign. So she'll be at our January meeting.
Great, thank you. All right,
Good meeting, everybody.
yeah, thanks everyone
Yeah.
for being here. Thanks
Thank
very much for coming, Chris.
Yeah, nice to meet you all.
Yeah, we'll be in touch.
Yeah, great. Keep up the good work.
Happy
You too.
solstice, everybody. Happy holidays.
Yeah, happy holidays.
Merry
Bye-bye.
Christmas. Yes.
Happy holidays. Bye, everyone.
Bye.